She didn't hear the boy come in. He was already inside when she looked up from the floorboards. He stood still in the doorway, dust clinging to his shirt like it belonged there. In his hand hung a length of frayed rope, stained dark at the middle. He walked slowly, careful not to look at her, and hooked the loop onto the rusted nail above the stove. Then he stepped back. She didn't move. Her voice came low. "Where'd you get that?" The boy didn't answer. Her eyes locked on the rope. It swung once, slowly. "You don't bring that in here." "It's yours," he said. "It ain't." "You know it is." She stood now, jaw set. "Take it down." He didn't move. She walked up to the wall and stared at the thing, like it might bite. It was sun-bleached along the sides, brittle where the knot had been retied, still carried the memory of a neck. Her hand curled. "You found this?" He nodded. "Where?" The boy's jaw twitched. "Doesn't matter. Don't tell me what matters. You tell me where you got my brother's rope." "It was hanging," he said quietly. "Same way. On a nail. Where?" "In the sorter's shed." Her face went still. Her mouth opened, shut again. "That shed's locked." "Not now." She stepped back like the wall had burned her, her arms crossed over her ribs. "You think this is funny?" "No, ma'am." "Are you trying to scare me?" "No." "You think you know something?" "I know he didn't fall, like they said." She blinked. "You don't say that." Her voice cracked. "You don't come in here and say that." "He didn't fall," the boy said again. She stared hard at him. Then I looked back at the rope. It wasn't just a rope. It was that rope. The one the sheriff handed her folded in brown paper. The one they said got cut down from the cedar tree behind town hall. "You're lying." "I'm not." "Don't you dare." "I saw his initials," the boy said. "Burned in near the end, the way he used to mark his feed sacks." Her stomach turned. "He wouldn't have left that," the boy added. She turned and grabbed the rope, yanked it from the nail, held it in her hands like it was a snake. Her eyes scanned the fibers, fingers trembling. And there it was, just faint, nearly faded. 2 letters, BC. She backed up, sat hard in the wooden chair by the stove. "He tied that knot himself," she whispered. "Yeah." "He never left it behind." "No, ma'am." Her eyes met the boy's. "You tell me exactly what you were doing in that shed." He didn't blink. "Looking." "For what?" "Whatever they left." "Who?" He didn't answer. "Who?" He looked at the floor. "You found this alone?" He nodded. "You go back." He didn't move. "You go back and find what else they left." The boy glanced toward the rope. "You sure?" Her voice turned to gravel. "I buried my brother without knowing why. I buried him with lies on his chest. You go back." He nodded once, turned toward the door. "Wait." He stopped. "You don't tell anyone you came here." He nodded again. "And you don't hang anything else on my wall." "Understood." He stepped outside. She stared at the empty nail. The wall looked naked now, like something had been watching and left. She didn't sleep that night. The rope sat coiled on the table like it was listening. Wind hit the windows but didn't rattle. The stove clicked. Nothing burned. At dawn, she poured water from the kettle and sat beside it again. Her brother's face swam in her mind. His voice. "You don't trust the ones that smile too big," he'd said once. "Smiling's how they hide the rot." He wasn't the type to ride drunk, wasn't the type to fall either. The boy came back after dark the next day. Clothes are dirtier than before. Mud caked to his sleeves. He didn't say anything, just dropped something on her floorboards. A small square of burlap, folded tight. She didn't move. "Go on," he said. She knelt, unfolded it. Inside was a ring of keys, rusted shut, a broken sheriff's badge, the old kind with sharp corners, and a scrap of paper torn from a ledger. She turned it over. There was a list of names, half crossed out. At the bottom, BC. She looked up. "You find this in the sorter's shed?" "No," the boy said. "Below it." "You dig?" He nodded. "Why?" "There was a trap door." "Since when?" "Hidden under feed bags. You wouldn't know unless you were looking." She swallowed. "Who else saw you?" "No one." "You sure?" He looked her dead in the eyes. "Ain't nobody been out there since the governor's men shut it down. They left it to rot." She stood slow, picked up the badge. The corner was bent like it had been stepped on. "You know what this means?" she asked. "I think you do." "They put his name in a book, same as a cow." "Yeah." Her throat closed. They took everything from him. Not everything. She looked up. You still got his name, the boy said. Still got his rope. She looked at the table. You didn't hang it for me, she said. No. You hung it for them. He nodded. I get it now. Good. She picked up the rope. I walked back to the wall, hung it again. This time, higher. Later that night, a knock came soft at the door. She didn't answer. A second knock, louder. She opened it slowly. It was the sheriff. Old coat. New eyes. You got something of mine, he said. Her voice was flat. I ain't got a thing. Have you seen the boy? Which one? Seed sorter's son. He doesn't speak to me. The sheriff stepped forward. Are you sure about that? You calling me a liar? He didn't answer. She let. The silence stretch. The town's not safe after dark, he said. Was it ever? He glanced past her shoulder, saw the rope, went pale. I thought you burned that. She stepped between him and the door frame. Maybe you should ask why it's still here. Take it down. No. You want folks talking again. I want them to scream. He stepped back. I buried my brother once, she said. I won't do it again. You're stirring things that were settled. They were never settled, just silenced. The sheriff's jaw tightened. You're making this hard. She leaned forward. Number you did. Then she shut the door. Later the boy said, He saw it, didn't he? She nodded. You saw how he flinched. Means he knows. Means he remembers. The boy's voice dropped. Then he's part of it. Worse, she said. He buried it. They sat in silence. Then the boy said, I think it's time. She looked at him. Time for what? For them to feel it. She stared at the rope. You got more names? He nodded. Good. She sat at the kitchen table with the ledger scrap in her hand, her thumb rubbing over her brother's initials at the bottom. The rope still hung above the stove, the loop facing the window like it could see something outside she couldn't. The boy stood near the door, hands in his pockets, dirt under his nails. Same shirt as yesterday. She didn't look up. You said you saw who tied the rope. No, he said. You said, I said I saw where it was. You also said he wasn't alone. He didn't speak. Her voice sharpened. I don't need riddles, son. I need the truth. It's not all mine to give. Whose is it then? He looked away. Yours. She stood, pulled a tin cup from the shelf, filled it with cold well water, and slid it across the table toward him. He didn't move. You're not here by accident, she said. No, ma'am. Then speak. He stared at the rope. Your brother didn't fall. He was ridden down. Her stomach went tight. What does that mean? They made it look like a fall. They tied the rope after. Who? The ones with the ledger. Say their names. I don't know all of them. Then give me the ones you do. He shook his head. They're not written down. You're protecting them. No. You're protecting yourself. He nodded once. Maybe. She stepped closer. How old were you when it happened? 10. You saw it. Number I heard it. She folded her arms. From where? Behind the cedar line. By town hall? He nodded. That rope hung on that tree all night. He nodded again. She pressed in. Who else was there? He hesitated. Men from the council. I heard voices. One had a limp. Keep shifting. His weight on the gravel. Her brow furrowed. Limp? Sounded like metal on stone. She sat back down, quiet. Her fingers traced the groove in the wood table. Sheriff's boots used to click like that. Yeah, the boy said. It did. She swallowed. He was your friend, you know. My brother. I know. Used to bring your mom a flower. I remember. She said he hurt his shoulders too much. He did. He carried everyone else's too. Silence fell. The rope creaked above the stove as wind pushed against the house. She stood again. You said the sorter's shed had more. Yeah. Show me. Not yet. Why not? It's not time. She stared hard. You don't get to decide that. I don't. The place does. She looked at him like he'd spoken in tongues. What the hell's that mean? The shed remembers. She turned away, hands braced on the sink. You sound like my brother. He used to say the ground keeps secrets, not people. He was right. She turned back. So who do I ask? Dirt? Boards? The boy didn't smile. You'll know when it answers. The next morning, she walked down to the feed store, faces turned when she passed. Quiet nods, quick glances, a few muttered greetings. Her boots kicked up dust with every step. Inside, she passed two old women near the scale. One looked up and said, "Was that really his rope?" She paused. "What do you think?" The second woman shook her head. "Don't bring it back. Some of us buried what needed to be buried. Some of us," she said, "never got the truth." She left the store with no food. Back home, she found the boy cleaning the floorboards with a rag and basin. "What are you doing?" He didn't stop. The house had footprints. "From who?" "From where you went." She leaned in. "Someone followed me?" "Maybe." She checked the latch on the back door. "You think they'll come inside?" Not yet." She stared down at him. "You think they'll come for you?" He looked up. "Already have." She didn't ask what he meant, just stood there, watching him scrub. That night, she walked past the edge of her property to the place where her brother used to fish. The stream bed was dry. Leaves filled the bend. A long piece of fencing lay coiled in the dirt, rusted through. She knelt, pulled something small from the soil. A button, worn, smooth, brass. She turned it over and saw a faint star carved into the back. Badge button. She pocketed it. When she got home, she didn't tell the boy. In town the next day, the pastor cornered her near the well pump. "You've been stirring ghosts," he said. "They were never quiet. You think this'll end well." "I don't think that word fits." He nodded toward her house down the lane. "That boy's trouble. He's the truth." "Same thing some days." She stepped close. "He's not the one with blood on his hands. He doesn't have to be. He just has to name who does." She said nothing. "Not all fires are meant to be relit," the pastor whispered. She walked away without answering. Back at the house, she found a scrap of cloth folded on her porch. Inside it, a cracked belt buckle, initials carved in the leather backing. B.C., her brother's. She stepped back, nearly tripped over the step. The boy came out the door behind her. "Wasn't I?" "I know." "They left it as a warning." "No," she said. "They left it because they're scared." He nodded. "They should be." That night, she took down the rope. She boiled water, laid the rope in it, wash it till her arms hurt. Then she let it dry on the table like meat hung out to cure. The boy stood behind her. "You think that'll clean it?" "No," she said. "But it'll show I ain't scared of what it carries." He nodded. "Are you ready to go back?" she asked. "Yeah." "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow." In the quiet, she spoke again. "Have you ever seen his body?" He nodded. "How?" "They left him out there." "Where?" "Behind the sorter's shed." She turned to him slowly. "They said it was by the road." "They lied." Her voice broke. "How long?" "Till morning." "Will anyone go to him?" "No." "You?" I sat across the creek. I watched the sun come up behind him. Tears filled her eyes. "You were just a boy." So was he. She sat at the table, rope dry now, stiff in the air. "Will he ever see you?" But I think he knew someone was watching." She touched the coil gently. "Maybe that's why he didn't scream." "Maybe." "You said someone had a limp?" "Yes." "Sheriff walks fine now." The boy stared back. "People heal fast when they bury what hurts them." She reached across the table, handed him the badge button. "I found this by the stream." He turned it in his fingers. "The stars faint," he said. "So's their grip." She looked toward the window. The sky was going dark. "Tomorrow," she said again. The boy looked her in the eye. "We dig." He showed up just after sunrise, didn't knock, just stood at the edge of her porch, hands in his coat pockets, eyes on the dry dirt. She saw him through the window, didn't move. When he finally spoke, his voice was the same it had always been, clipped, low, like every word had weight he didn't want to carry. "You burned the rope yet?" She opened the door, but didn't invite him in. "No," she said. "It's drying on the stove rail." He looked up. "Should have let it rot." She leaned against the door frame. "Some things rot louder than others." He stepped forward. "You think you're helping?" "No." "Then what are you doing?" "Remembering." He tilted his head. "You remember what came after?" She didn't answer. "I do," he said. "It wasn't peaceful." "You mean silence?" "Same thing." She stepped aside. "If you've come to threaten me, do it where the boy can hear." "I'm not threatening you." "Good. Then you won't mind saying what you said to him that night." His jaw tightened. I didn't say a damn word. You were there. He didn't blink. No. You limped. I don't limp. You used to. He looked down at the porch slats. You've been talking to him. You're not denying it. There's nothing to deny. Then why are you here? To stop this. Stop what? He met her eyes. Before it gets worse. It already did. Before it burns everything. She crossed her arms. I got nothing left to burn. The door behind her creaked open. The boy stepped into view, eyes on the sheriff. You were there, he said. The sheriff didn't flinch. No. You stepped on the badge. He was silent. It cracked under your heel. I heard it. The sheriff looked at the woman. He's a child. He remembers. Children see monsters everywhere. Only when they're real. He turned toward the boy. You don't know what you saw. You wore the same coat. That doesn't mean anything. It smelled like cedar smoke. The woman spoke quietly. He never forgot that smell. The sheriff took a slow breath. This town's thin-skinned. Words like these tear it open. She didn't blink. Maybe it needs tearing. You want a firestorm? I want a name. He paused. And if I gave you one, I'd hang it on the wall beside the rope. He shook his head. You don't want the weight. I carried worse. The boy stepped closer. Say it. Say what? Who gave the order? The sheriff's voice dropped. There was no order. Then who pulled him down? Silence. The sheriff looked to the horizon, then back. Everything changed that night, he said, and none of it for the better. She stepped off the porch, slow. Then, maybe we drag it into the light. He looked tired, older than before. You think justice still lives here? No, she said, but ghosts do. He turned back toward his horse. Be careful where you dig. She followed him halfway to the gate. Why? She asked. He didn't turn around. Because you might find your brother's blood on someone you love. He rode off. Inside, she dropped into the chair by the stove. The rope was dry. She reached out and traced the knot. The boy sat across from her. You believe him? She asked. No. I don't either. He leaned forward. You think he's scared? He wouldn't have come if he wasn't. The boy took something from his pocket, a torn scrap of cloth. What's that? From under the sorter floor. She took it gently. I looked closer. The edge was stained, dark, almost black. Blood? She asked. Could be. Whose? He shrugged. Yours to guess. She folded it, set it on the table beside the rope. He didn't come here to stop us, she said. No. He came to see how close we are. The boy looked at her. And we're close enough to make him sweat. Later that day, she walked the town loop, kept her eyes open, listened. 2 men whispered near the mill gate. One turned away when he saw her. The other tipped his hat too late. She passed the church fence. The pastor watched from the doorway but said nothing. By the store, a woman she didn't know spit in the dust. You oughta let dead men stay dead. She didn't stop walking. At dusk, she and the boy sat by the back window. A dog barked somewhere in the hills. She whispered, He knows. The boy nodded. He's waiting for us to stop. We won't. No, she said. We won't. The knock came near midnight. Just one. She opened the door. No one stood there, just a box on the step. She brought it in, set it on the table, and opened it. Inside, a single horseshoe, split down the middle. The iron edges are sharp and rusted. She turned it. The underside had been carved. 3 letters. BC. The boy stood in the hallway. Is that his? She nodded. What's it mean? Means they're done hiding. You scared? No. You should be. She turned to him. Are you? He didn't answer. They didn't sleep. When the morning came, the house felt smaller. The light came in like it was being watched. She boiled water, washed her hands twice. Then she unwrapped the cloth from the sorter shed, spread it flat. There's more under there, she said. Yeah. How deep? Hard to say. You ready? He nodded. She packed a spade, a lantern, 2 apples. He grabbed the ledger page. They walked out into the dirt, quiet. The rope still hung in the kitchen above the stove. They didn't take it down. They left it swinging. The lock broke easier than she expected. Just one hard snap with the crowbar, and the door groaned open, its hinges dry and stiff like something trying not to wake. Dust clouded the air. The boy stepped in first. Lantern, he said. She handed it to him. He lit it quick, held it high. The inside was still. No sound but the soft crunch of dirt and straw under their boots. "It's just the same," he muttered. "When were you last here?" "Week after the rope showed up." "And before that?" "Years." She scanned the walls, hooks with nothing hanging. A wheelbarrow leaned against one post. Burlap sacks rotted to the floor. She touched one with her boot. "It's disintegrated." "There," the boy said. In the far corner, a stack of crates. Behind it, a shelf. And on that shelf, a thick, leather-bound book, curled and brittle at the edges. She reached for it. The boy said, "Use your scarf." She wrapped her hand, pulled the ledger free. Dust poured off like ash. She carried it to the table in the center of the shed, laid it flat, and opened to the first page. "Names," she said. "Start at the back." She flipped to the last entries. The ink here was darker, fresher. Lines of names, some circled, others crossed out. Numbers beside each. No currency symbol, just raw figures. On some, beside the names, were scratched symbols. A square, a mark, like a horseshoe, a small, rough loop. She turned the page again. There it was. B, C, circled hard in black. The pen had dug into the paper. Beside it, one word, cleared. She stared. "What does that mean?" The boy looked down. "It means he paid." "For what?" "Don't say." She kept reading. "Here, same loop symbol, same next to 3 others." "What's the loop mean?" The boy didn't answer. She looked up. "You know." He nodded. "It's a ride mark." Her stomach turned. "They marked men like cattle." On paper, her voice broke. "They cleared him." The boy reached across the table, flipped the page back. "There, see the pattern?" She did. Every time a name was circled, something came after, a word, a mark, a line through. "What's the square?" "Land." "The horseshoe?" "Debt." "And the loop?" The boy stared at the ledger. "Rope." She sat back. The air was thick. Her throat is dry. "You think this book—" "It's a map," the boy said, "of who they picked and why." She whispered. "They didn't just kill him." "No." "They accounted for him." "Yeah." She slammed the book shut. Dust shot up. "They planned it." He nodded. "Like they always did." They searched the shed. Behind a false panel under the shelf, the boy found a small wooden box. Inside, scraps of cloth, 3 empty shell casings, and a badge with the center caved in. She turned the badge over. Same star. Same bend as the one from the stream. "That's not the sheriff's," she said. "No," the boy said. "It's older." He pointed to the casing. Same type used that year. She closed the box. "Why keep it?" "Proof. Or pride." They stepped outside into the gray light. She looked back at the shed. "How many names do you think were cleared?" "Too many," he said. "We show the town. They won't believe it." She turned to him. "Why not?" "Because they were part of it." Back home, she laid the ledger flat on her table, set the rope beside it. The loop matched the mark in the book. She stared for a long time. The boy sat in the chair across from her, picking dirt from under his nails. She said, "You said the rope was left for me." He nodded. "It wasn't buried. It was hung." "Why now?" "They're afraid." "Of what?" "That you'll remember." She swallowed. "I do." "Then they're right to be scared." She took the ledger to the kitchen, pulled a match from the tin, lit the stove. I watched the fire grow. The boy watched her. "Are you going to burn it?" "No." "You sure?" She stared at the flame. "This thing's waited long enough. It can wait one more day." She closed the stove door. The boy leaned forward. "You want to read it again?" "No." "Why not?" "Because now I see it." The rope cast a long shadow on the table. She whispered, "They used him to keep others quiet." "They still are." She turned to the window. Someone stood at the edge of the yard, just watching. She said nothing. The boy stood. "They know we found it." "Let them." "We're not ready." "No," she said, "but we're not backing down either." That night, she opened the ledger one last time. Next to her brother's name, she took her pen and wrote 3 letters. L.A.S. The boy asked, "What's that?" She looked at him. "Last account settled." Then she closed the book and blew the lantern out. They saw the glow before they heard the crack. Red light pulsed against the kitchen wall. The rope above the stove swung slowly, catching it like flame on a fuse. She stood first. "Stay here," she told the boy. "I'm coming." "No." "You'll need help." "I'll need silence." He didn't argue, just grabbed his coat and followed. The barn burned 3 fields over. It belonged to the old Crane estate, long empty, long ignored. But someone had kept the grass trimmed. Someone had patched the roof last spring. Now the whole thing collapsed in orange waves. She and the boy stood behind the fence line with 5 others, men with dirt on their boots and ash in their beards. One woman held her shawl close. Nobody spoke. She watched the roof cave in. "Someone lit that," she said. A man cleared his throat. "Lightning, maybe." "There wasn't a storm." The woman near her whispered, "Don't take one." She turned. "You scared?" The woman looked away. Another man said, "Maybe it was squatters." "Maybe," she said. "And maybe we're lying." One of the men stepped forward. "You think it was about that damn rope?" "I don't think so." "I know," he scoffed. "It's just fire." "No," she said. "It's a cover." The boy pointed to the left. There. A small shape, burnt black, half buried in the dirt near the fence. She walked over, crouched, pulled it free. A scrap of burlap, same kind the ledger had been wrapped in. She stood. "They're sending a message," she said. One man muttered, "Then maybe stop asking questions." She looked him in the eye. "Maybe ask louder." By morning, the sheriff had already come and gone. Called it accidental. "Flammable dust," he said. "Old wiring." No investigation. She stood outside the store as townsfolk filtered through. Some nodded, some didn't meet her gaze. An old farmer with a stitched sleeve walked up. "Craneland ain't been touched in years." "Someone touched it last night." He leaned in. "Some land doesn't forget who owns it." She said nothing. "You are poking old ghosts," he said. "Don't expect 'em to stay quiet." "I'm not scared of ghosts." "You should be." She turned. "You remember my brother?" The man's face cracked. "That boy had fire in him." "They tried to bury it." He looked down. "Sometimes fire spreads." She stepped past him. At home, the rope on the wall looked darker. It shimmered like it had been watching. The boy sat at the table. "They did it to distract us." "From what?" "From who's next." She stared at the rope. "Could be anyone," she said. "No," he said. "It's someone close." They went to the mill that evening. The workers didn't look up. Machines whined and screamed. The air is full of sawdust and sweat. She found Mara by the water spout, rinsing her arms. Thick wrists, burn marks up her forearm. "You hear?" she asked. Mara didn't flinch. "I heard. They say it was an accident." Mara shook her head. "Ain't no such thing around here." "You knew my brother." "I knew what he tried to stop." She lowered her voice. "Have you ever seen that ledger?" Mara dried her hands. "I saw him carry it." "And?" "He said he had names." "He did." "Then you best hide it better." She leaned in. "You think they'll burn me too?" Mara met her eyes. "They already tried, years back. You just didn't smell it yet." At night, the boy stayed near the door. She watched from the window. The rope didn't swing. It just hung there, silent, heavy, watching. In the early dark, someone knocked twice. Light, then harder. She opened with the lantern raised. The sheriff stood alone, hat in hand, eyes low. "You see it?" "I saw everything." He nodded. "Got folks stirred." "You mean scared?" Number stirred. She stepped out onto the porch. "You came to tell me to stop again?" "No." "Then why?" He took a breath. "They're not done." "I know." "Do you light any fires?" She blinked. "Are you asking if I did it?" He shrugged. "Wouldn't blame you if you had." "I didn't." "You should have." She narrowed her eyes. "You drunk?" "No." "Then speak plainly." He stepped closer. "They're closing ranks." "Who?" "The ones who made the list." Her stomach twisted. "You're on it now," he said. She looked at the rope. "Good." He reached into his coat, handed her something small, a brass tag, cracked down the center, her initials on one side. That was nailed to the barn door. She turned it in her palm. "They want me to shut up. They want you to vanish." She looked at the boy. He stood still in the doorway, face pale. "Are we done being quiet?" she asked. The sheriff stepped back. "You never were." She nodded. "Then we start naming." She rode into town the next morning with the ledger in a sack. At the crossroads, she stopped beside the old bell post, tied the rope to the rail, hung it where it could be seen. By noon, half the town had passed by. Nobody touched it, but nobody walked past it twice. They gathered just after dusk. No invitations, no knocks, just soft steps on the porch and the creak of the back door swinging open. One by one they came in, shawls drawn tight, eyes hard, mouths tight-lipped but hungry. The table was already set, bread sliced thick, butter cooling, coffee dark and still. She said nothing, just nodded as each woman sat. Mara came first, then Elsie, the butcher's widow, then Ruth and Miss Willa, both with red dirt still under their nails. 5 in all. 6, counting the rope still hanging in the kitchen. The boy sat in the corner, silent, watching. Mara broke the silence first. "Are you sure it was him?" "I know his rope," she said. Elsie buttered a slice. "Plenty of rope in this town." "Not with his knot." Miss Willa passed the sugar. "So, who hung it?" "Someone who remembers," Ruth said, "or someone who wants you to." She leaned in. "That rope was never meant to hang alone." Mara took a long drink. "Are you saying there's more coming?" "I'm saying it never stopped." Elsie looked at her. "You said there's a ledger." She reached into the cabinet, set it on the table. It opened slowly, names lined up like seeds planted in rows. Willa whispered, "That's my uncle's." Mara pointed. "That one's mine." Ruth said, "Heard that name on the radio once. Ran for mayor." Elsie leaned in. "That mark there, loop, means they were picked." "Picked for what?" She looked around the table. "For silence." Mara frowned. "You think silence can be bought?" "No," she said, "but it can be written down." Ruth ran her finger down the page. "My father's not here." "Then he paid in other ways." Willa whispered, "Mine disappeared." Mara nodded. "Mine too." Said he was going north. Never made it. Elsie took another bite. "And now we're here." The boy finally spoke. "I saw him that night." The room went still. "Your brother," he said. "I saw him." She turned to him. "Where?" He looked down. "Behind the sorting shed." Mara's breath hitched. "You said that already." "No," he said. "I didn't say where I was." Ruth asked, "Where were you?" "Inside," he said. The room fell silent. "I was hiding under the trap floor." Willa leaned forward. "Why?" "I'd seen the book before. My father touched it. I wanted to know why." She stood, hands trembling. "You watched?" Number one listened. "Then say what you heard." The boy looked at her. "I heard your brother cry out." Mara asked, "Was it a fight?" "No." "Then what?" "Begging." She sat back down. "And then?" "A thud." Elsie's hand stopped mid-slice. Ruth said, "You sure it was him?" "I know his voice," the boy said. Willa asked, "You saw who else was there?" He didn't answer. "Say it." "I didn't see." "But you know," she said. "Yes." Elsie said, "Then speak." He shook his head. "Not yet." Ruth slammed her hand down. "Then why are we here?" She looked around the table. "Because the silence didn't protect them. It buried them." Mara pushed her plate away. "What do you want from us?" "Memory," she said. "And mouths." Willa spoke softly. "You want us to name names?" "No," she said. "I want you to remember who already did." Elsie said, "We all lost someone, and none of us asked why." The rope creaked on the wall. The women turned. Ruth stood. "You got names, you use them. Don't ask us to." "You were there." "We survived." "Barely." Elsie rose. "I didn't come here to feel guilty." "No," she said. "You came to feel full." Silence again. She stood slowly, lifted a slice of bread. "Hold it up." "You know why we eat together?" Nobody answered. "Because it keeps us quiet, makes us feel normal. But this..." She set the bread down. "This is just filler." Mara said, "We have children." "I know." "We have names to protect." "I'm protecting one." Willa asked, "What happens when you speak?" "They burn barns." Elsie said, "And when they're done with the barns, they come for the rope." Ruth leaned in. "You hang it in the square?" "Yes." "Then you made a choice." "I did." "And we're supposed to follow?" "No," she said. "You're supposed to stand." They sat quietly. The boy reached for a slice, broke it in half, passed it to Mara. She looked down. I took it, then passed the other half to Elsie. Willa reached for more. Ruth's eyes filled, but she stayed still. The boy looked at them. "You don't have to speak now. Just remember who kept you silent." Mara stood. You'll call when it's time. She nodded. One by one, the women stood and left. No plates cleaned, no goodbyes, only the rope left swinging and crumbs on the table. The car didn't belong. Black paint, clean lines, tires too smooth for gravel. It pulled up slow, quiet, like it didn't want to leave tracks. Two men stepped out, thin ties, pressed collars, city shoes already, gathering dust. She didn't get up from the porch, just watched them approach. "You the woman with the rope?" one asked. She didn't answer. "We were told you've been stirring trouble." The boy stepped from behind her chair. "You lost?" The taller one smiled. "This is state business." She crossed her arms. "Then you're late." "We're just in time." They didn't introduce themselves. "I didn't need to." She stood now. "You from the governor." "We speak on his behalf." "You read the ledger?" "We read reports." She nodded toward the square. "Then you saw the rope." "It's being taken down." "No, it's a matter of order." "No," she said again. "It's a matter of memory." The shorter one stepped forward. "You don't understand what you're poking." "I understand fine. You've put names in mouths that can't afford to speak. Then those mouths should bite back." He lowered his voice. "You're opening a box that was sealed for a reason." The boy muttered, "Not sealed, buried." They looked at him. She said, "My brother's name was circled in ink and crossed off in silence. I ain't letting either happen again." The tall one shifted. "Miss, this can end quietly. You can take that rope down, forget the book, and we'll forget you." She took a step forward. "You ever ride out to a tree and see your kin hanging for debts you never knew existed?" Silence. "Didn't think so." The boy spoke low. "Your brother wasn't alone." The men turned to him. "What?" "He wasn't the only one marked. We know." She looked at them. "So you admit it?" "No." The tall one said, "We acknowledge records exist." "That's the same thing." "It's not," the other snapped. "And if you want to keep your house upright, you'll stop pretending it is." She pointed down the road. "You see that barn at the ridge?" They turned. "That's where it started." The boy nodded. "That's where they dragged him first. The suits didn't blink." "We can't stop you," the tall one said, "but we can outweight you. Try." They turned, walked back to the car, dust rising behind their heels. She whispered, "They think this is over." "No," the boy said. "They're just betting we won't push." They rode out to the barn at midday. Windless heat, boards gray from sun and secrets. She stood in the doorway. "He was here." The boy nodded. "Before the shed." "How long?" "Couple hours." "Why?" "They made him sign." She turned. "Sign what?" "The last page." She swallowed. "He wrote it himself?" "Yeah." They stepped inside. It smelled like straw and sweat. In the far corner, a desk, rusted nails, broken leg. One drawer is missing. She knelt beside it. Pull the top open. Inside, a piece of folded paper. Yellowed. Brittle. She opened it. 5 names, all marked with the loop symbol. Beside them, one word. Settled. Her brother's name is at the top. The boy said, "He gave in." "No." "He signed." "To protect someone." The boy looked away. He had a choice. She folded the paper. "So do we." The next day, she posted the names, pinned them beside the rope. This time, nobody tore them down, but nobody walked past them either, not without crossing the street. The sheriff came at dusk, tired, dusty, no badge on his chest. "You know who owns that barn?" She didn't answer. He sat on the step. "Governor's daddy." "Figures. They used to hold meetings there, back when nobody asked why." "They still don't." "They're asking now." "Not loud enough." He looked up. "You sure you want to drag this all the way out?" "You mean into the light?" He nodded. "Yeah," she said. "I am." He stood. "Then expect visitors." "I already had some." He looked toward the barn. "They come from the Capitol?" "Sharp suits, duller hearts." He stepped off the porch. "Don't wait for them to burn you." "I won't." He paused. "Your brother. He was the only one who ever asked about the barn." She said, "And you?" "I answered once." "Then do it again." He didn't, just walked off into the night. The governor's barn burned 4 days later. She saw the glow in her window. This time she didn't run to it. This time she watched it fall from a distance, watched the flames eat the bones of old meetings, watched the ledger names light the sky. The boy stood beside her. "It's gone now." She said, "No. It's finally visible." Morning came with silence. No birds, no breeze, just smoke and ash. She walked to the barn's edge. Something glinted in the wreckage. She stepped over beams, sifted soot, and found it. A gold pin, small, circular, governor's seal. The boy said, "They left it on purpose." She pocketed it. "Then I'll return it." That evening, she nailed the pin beside the rope, above the ledger. Then she wrote a word on the wall in chalk. "Remember." The next knock came from a woman. Gray dress, hair pulled tight, eyes sharper than any blade. "You lied." "No." "You think the governor's family killed your brother?" "I think they paid for it." The woman stepped close. "You're sowing division." "I'm stitching the truth." The woman laughed. "You think folks want that?" "They need it. They'll turn on you. Let them." The woman handed her an envelope. "This is an offer." "From who?" "From above you." She opened it. Land. Silence. Safety. She set it on the stove. I watched it burn. By nightfall, the rope glowed again. Not from flame, but from fear. The shovel hit the stone. She stopped. Wiped her brow. I looked at the boy. He nodded. "This place?" she asked. Ledger said the third marker past the gate, 2 rows north. They stood on the ridge behind the old orchard, where the land sloped quietly and untended. The markers weren't real headstones, just flat rocks worn smooth by sun and time. No names, no carvings. She knelt, brushed away more soil. The stone was chipped along one side. Beneath it, the ground gave way. The boy handed her the second shovel. "You sure you want to know?" "I already do." They dug. It took 3 hours to clear the first hole. Not deep. Less than a grave should be. Bones didn't surface, but something else did. Wood, rotten, cracked. She reached down and lifted the lid of a crate no bigger than a child's box. Inside, straw, damp and crumbling. Wrapped in it, a shirt, blood dark and torn, folded with unnatural care. Beneath that, a hat. Her brother's hat. She touched the brim. It fell apart in her hands. The boy whispered, "They buried reminders, not men." She nodded. This wasn't for family. "No," he said. "It was for them." They dug again. 3 more shallow pits, each the same. A token inside, a wallet, a boot, a patch sewn with initials, faded but still there. Nothing with flesh. No remains. She stared at the row of holes. "What is this?" she asked. "A cemetery for cowards," the boy said. "No," she whispered. "It's a threat." He crouched beside her. "You see that?" She turned. 1 more stone, further back, covered in moss. They cleared it, dug. This one was deeper. They hit metal, not rusted, not old. She knelt and pulled it out. A badge, sheriff's badge, burned halfway down the center. The star is still visible. The name on the back scratched out. She turned to the boy. "This wasn't meant to be found." He whispered, "That rope? It wasn't for one man." She looked around. "How many?" He didn't answer. They sat by the 4th grave till night came. Cicadas are loud. The air is thick. She held the badge in her hand like it was heavy. The boy said, "My father used to come here." "Alone?" "Always." "You think he helped bury these?" "No," he said. "He just kept them hidden." "Same thing." He didn't argue. She asked, "Why the badge?" "Symbol. Message to who?" "To anyone who thought about talking." She stood. "Then let's talk back." They carried the badge to the square, hammered it onto the post beneath the rope. This time, people stopped. One man asked, "Where'd you get that?" She said, "The hill." Another said, "That's yours?" "No," she said. But the silence was. No one touched it, but no one walked past. The sheriff came that evening, stared at the badge, said nothing. She asked, "Yours?" He didn't move. The boy stepped forward. "You know the hill?" He nodded. She said, "You helped make it." He finally spoke. "I helped cover it." Same thing. He didn't argue. "Why the badge?" she asked. His voice came slowly. "That belonged to the one who said no." She looked at him. "Said no to what?" "To the ledger." "And?" "They made an example." She held his stare. "And you watched." "I carried him there." The boy whispered, "You buried your conscience." He nodded. "Every day since." Word spread. People came to the post at night, left offerings, bread, flowers, old receipts, a child's drawing of a tree with no name beneath it. One morning, someone nailed a slip of paper next to the rope. It read, "I remember my father's boots. He never came home from the meeting. No name, just ink, faded and shaking." She left it there. 3 days later, a fire started in her field. Didn't reach the house, just enough to blacken the grass. She didn't move when she saw it, just stood on the porch. The boy said, "They're warning us again." She said, "They don't know how to speak. Only burn." That night, they returned to the hill. This time, they brought lanterns. They didn't dig, just walked, stone to stone, counting, marking. The boy said, 24. She whispered, "That's how many were silenced." He nodded. Number, that's how many they thought would stay that way. She knelt by the last grave, lit a match, burned a strip of the ledger, buried the ashes in the dirt. The boy asked, "Why?" "So they can't rewrite it." As they left, he turned back. I looked at the hill. Graves open, stones scattered, truth exposed. He said, "It looks like a wound." She said, "It always was." The house was cold when she came back. Quiet, too, the kind of quiet that pressed against the walls like smoke. She set the folded shirt on the table. Her brother's, faded blue, sleeves torn where they'd pulled him down. She stared at it for a while, didn't move, then reached for the tin sewing box under the sink. The boy stood by the stove, arms crossed. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. She didn't answer, just lit the lamp. He came closer. "Feels like something's about to snap." She opened the tin, pulled out the last needle. Only one left. Her fingers trembled as she threaded it. The boy watched her. "You're shaking." "Shut up." "You want help?" "No." "You shouldn't do this angry." "I'm not angry." He sat down. "You're something." She stabbed the needle through the fabric. "I'm tired." He waited. "You want me to say it?" she asked. "Say what?" "That I'm scared." "Yeah," he said, "because you are." She kept stitching. "You think I don't have a reason?" "I know you do." She stopped, looked up. "Then why push me?" "Because I see what you're holding back." "I'm not holding anything." "You're holding everything." She set the needle down. "You don't know what it cost." "I know enough." She glared. "You know what it felt like to wash blood off your porch? To open a letter with your name carved into bone?" His voice dropped. "I've dug where no one's prayed." They stared at each other. She picked the needle back up. "You don't get to rush me." "I'm not." "You just want the show." "No," he said. "I want the end of pretending." She stitched in silence, thread tight, hands steadier now. The shirt came together in pieces like memory. The cuff, frayed and thin. The back, dark from sweat. The left pocket torn at the seam. A hole she hadn't noticed before. She ran her thumb over it, found something small inside, a slip of paper, folded tight. She unfolded it. One word, "Don't." She dropped it. The boy leaned forward. "What is it?" She didn't answer. He picked it up, read it. "That from him?" She nodded. "Don't what?" She stared at the rope on the wall. It was still there, but now the knot has come loose, half unraveled, hanging like a question. Maybe he knew it would come to this. Maybe he didn't want you to go further. Maybe he didn't want me to stop. She stood. I walked to the rope, pulled it down. I brought it to the table, laid it across the shirt, then started stitching it in. The boy's voice cracked. "You sure?" "No." He sat back. "You're binding it to him." "I'm binding it to me." She stitched slowly, careful, through cloth, through rope, through fear. "Why now?" he asked. "Because if I don't do this, the ones who made that ledger win." He stood. "Then let's name them." She stopped sewing. "No." "Why not?" "Because names are just noise. We need proof." "We have it." "Not enough." He slammed his hand on the table. "What's enough then?" She stood too. "When their own kin turn away from them." "And what if they don't?" "Then we bury the truth right in front of them." He stared at her. "You're just like them." She froze. "What?" "You bury things too." She stepped toward him. "Say that again." "You're afraid to finish what he started." "No," she said. "I'm afraid to leave this world worse than I found it." They stood inches apart. She whispered, "Don't you ever compare me to them." He turned away. You still don't get it, he said. You're still sewing shirts while they plan who dies next. I'm sewing evidence. It won't matter. It will when they hang it in the square. He stopped. She held up the shirt. When they see this, when they see what they left behind, they'll know it didn't work. What didn't? Their rope, she said. It didn't hold. She finished the stitch. The last needle broke in her hand. She didn't flinch. Now what? The boy asked. She stood. Hold the shirt up. Then I walked to the door. They went to the square, nailed the shirt to the post beneath the rope. A crowd gathered, quiet, watching. The badge was still there. The pin, the ledger page, and now the shirt, threaded with rope. At the center of it, the word she'd stitched across the chest. Accounted. The boy whispered, "It's done." She shook her head. "It's beginning." Someone stepped forward. Old man, shaking hands, hat in hand. He said, "My brother's name was in that book." She nodded. He didn't come back from the sorting shed. None of them did. He looked at the shirt. "You want us to follow? I want you to remember." By morning, others had come. Left coats, boots, letters. One woman brought a broken sewing needle. Tie it to the rope. That night, she sat by the stove. Hands raw, eyes dry. The boy made coffee. She whispered, "We didn't burn anything today." He said, "Not everything has to end in fire." She looked at the wall, empty now, no rope, just nail holes, and a shadow where the past used to hang. The square was already full when she got there. Men with their mouths shut tight, women with folded arms and tired eyes, children who didn't understand why no one was smiling. The rope hung where it always had. The shirt is still nailed beneath it. The badge, the pin. She carried the ledger under her arm. The boy walked beside her, quiet. He said, "You sure?" She said, "We waited too long." The sheriff stood by the bench near the post, hat low, coat open. He didn't speak when she passed. The governor's men leaned on a truck by the road. Same black coats, same polished boots, no dust on them. She stepped up onto the crate someone had dragged from the feed store, looked out over the crowd. "I won't take your time," she said. No one moved. "You know what this rope means." The wind shifted. The rope swayed once. "You know who it took? You know who helped it swing." The sheriff looked down. She held up the ledger. "This is the list." She opened it slowly, turned page by page. Hold it high. These names were chosen, circled, paid for. The tall man from the truck stepped forward. "This is slander." She looked at him. "Number this is what was buried." He said, "You think this town wants a war?" She nodded. "They've already lived through one." He smiled coldly. "You've got no proof." She stabbed a finger toward the rope. "That's proof." "You hung that." "No." She said, "You did." The boy stepped forward, voice calm. "I saw them drag her brother behind the shed." The crowd turned. The boy didn't blink. "I was 10. I heard him beg." "Lies." The man in the black coat said. The boy's voice rose. "I saw the rope. I saw the crate. I saw the badge they buried." The sheriff took a step forward. "Enough." She looked at him. "Are you ready to say it?" He didn't answer. "You stood there," she said. "You watched them mark the ledger." The sheriff's mouth opened, then closed. "You carried the shovel," the boy said. "You helped cover the hill." The crowd pressed closer. One woman whispered, "Is it true?" Another said, "Say something." The sheriff looked up. His voice shook. "I didn't choose the names." "But you knew them," she said. He nodded. "I kept the list," he said. "I folded it into my coat." The man from the truck shouted, "You're not bound to them anymore." The sheriff stepped off the bench. "I always was." She held the rope in both hands now, unhooked it from the post. I walked forward. "Every time you looked away," she said, "you added a knot." She laid the rope at the sheriff's feet. He stared at it. She whispered, "Say his name." He blinked. "Say it." "Benton," he said. "Say it louder." "Benton Calloway." The crowd murmured. "That rope hung his name," she said. "Now it hangs yours." She turned to the governor's men. "You want your silence back?" They didn't move. "Then take it." She stepped away from the rope. No one reached for it. The boy stepped up onto the crate. "My father helped them mark the book," he said. He sharpened the pen. Silence. The boy took out a slip of paper. "Hold it up." "His name's here." right above Benton's." He handed it to her. She pinned it to the wall behind the rope. Then she pinned the ledger beneath it. Then she stepped down. The crowd stood still. Then one man walked forward, dropped a hat on the rope. Another woman followed, tied her scarf to the ledger. A child laid down a drawing, a figure with no face, holding hands with a ghost. She turned to the sheriff. He said, "What now?" She said, "You leave it bare." He nodded. She picked up the rope, wrapped it around her hand. Then I walked away. The boy followed her past the church, past the well, past the sorting shed. "Are you going to burn it?" he asked. "No." "Then what?" She kept walking. They reached the edge of the field. She stopped, tied the rope around the lowest branch of a dead tree, left it swinging. "I want them to see it," she said. "In the morning?" "In the dark." She turned to him. "Are you ready to go home?" He nodded. That night, no one touched the wall. No one pulled the ledger down. No one cut the shirt loose. The rope's place stayed empty. But the sound of it stayed. In boots, on paper, in breath, and in the silence that finally